heard from Azimio leadership saying that they will rally their members of parliament to reject the bill and oppose all efforts to pass it with amendments because it is completely flawed. This seems to be a hardline position that might not be truly helpful. You've been a member of parliament. You well know of how business is conducted on the floor of the House, and ideally a member of parliament is supposed to think independently while exercising their mandate. Is this throwing the, the baby with the bathwater, this sort of approach?
Thank you, Jesse. Let me say from the beginning, this country has a vision. We have Vision 2030. That was crafted way back in 2008. And this time we are going to offer a very good opposition to make sure that the current government does not deviate from the vision, because that is a shared vision for this particular country. Yeah. If you check from where we are coming from, Kibaki was there, all right? He found revenue which was relatively very wrong during Moi's time. But he was able to move the revenue correction to about $1 trillion during his period. That is about 10 years. Yeah. The same has happened when he left, Uhuru took over, and he was able again to increase gradually for another 1 trillion. But the current government wants to do that within 1 year, which I tend to think is not correct at the moment because of the hardship that we have as a country. Remember, we are coming out of this epidemic, COVID. This country has seen the worst drought for the last 4 years. There is that political infighting in the country. There are so many factors that need to be thought out. So if the country is not doing very well financially and you want to increase the budget, what would happen is you are likely to overburden Kenyans. And yet he doesn't want to borrow from outside, meaning that he has to get that money from Kenyans. That's why you are seeing taxation from all corners. And that is not good for Kenyans because they are not able to do the basic things. That's why you are seeing so many people getting frustrated in the country. That's why you are seeing so many suicides, people killing each other because of this frustration. They are not seeing that hope. So we want to tell this government, move slowly. That thing will come, but let us do it gradually. Don't overtax. Don't get money right, left, from nowhere, from Kenyans. Otherwise, you are going to burden them, and they are not likely now to survive.
Okay, so when Azimio leadership takes a stand in terms of, rejecting the bill in its entirety, is this the most appropriate route perhaps to take, especially being a member of parliament, former? You'd well know about how important it is to raise your concerns in terms of the amendments on the floor of the House. Wouldn't this be a proper alternative in terms of rejecting the bill?
The only problem with the current parliament is that most members of parliament are not independent members. They can't think independently. They have to think along party lines. During my time there, you remember I've been a member of parliament from the time Saitoshi died in my constituency. The first term from 2013-2017, we had a very good parliament where you could stand, articulate your issues, and they are hard, and you could have stood in your direction. But going toward the end of last term, I realized you cannot articulate issues. You have to vote on an issue that you don't believe in. And currently, that is what's happening to these members of parliament. Most of them would know that this bill is not good for their people, but they'll be forced to vote for it. There is that intimidation. Remember what the president said in Narok the other time? He would like to see who will oppose. You see, those are some of the dictatorship tendencies that we want to say that they are past for this country. We cannot allow them to continue doing that. We are going to tell them this is not the kind of a country that would be run that way. We want it to be run democratically so that these members of parliament can articulate issues correctly, because also they hear from the ground what the people want. They are saying this bill is not correct. For example, look the way they have put this levy. As somebody who is on the ground and somebody running some few things here and there, if you have an enterprise that you started or a startup that employs like 10 people, And then the government comes in to say you have to pay 3% for housing. You have to buy a house for everybody who is working for you. And yet you are paying NHIF, you are paying NSSF that has been increased, you are paying another levy that is called Industrial Training Levy, NITA, there is payee, then you put another fund that is housing. Then you are telling me the organization, the enterprise will not grow, the startup will not pick up, meaning that that is not good for the country. And yet he's insisting that they have to vote that way. You see, that is not a very good bill. That's why we are saying our members, Jubilee members and Azimio members, should not vote for that bill. Otherwise, it's not a very good piece. He should go down, rethink about it, and bring it back to Parliament, and they vote for it.
Okay, interesting. As you come in, Lotte, because I asked you the contentious issues you particularly see in this bill. You were very economical with your answer in terms of, being a politician. But the issues that have been highlighted time and time again, especially with certain groups that might be affected in one way or the other. And we well know of the importance of the public participation process. From where you sit, since these views have been gathered, would it be the right route to amend certain issues despite what we've had from the leadership of Kenya Kwanza? Some have actually mentioned, some senators are quoted mentioning, we will pass as is. Would you give us the confidence that perhaps amendments will be looked into of notable issues that have been highlighted? Talk of the housing levy that has been quite controversial, talk of the VAT on insurance, talk on those contentious issues that have been raised. Will we see amendments on the floor of the House, especially since, the majority has their say and their way?
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say that it is incorrect for any member of Parliament, any legislator to say we will. The term "we" is actually a term of many people, not a term of one person. It's a collective term. They should say "I should" or "I will" pass it in totality. The term "we will" is a term of many people. And so we will not correct that. Okay. Politicians are not the technical people. And I actually mentioned here initially, I said, last week, the principal secretary was in Parliament, and he said he is from the public participation. And that tells you the goodness of a listening government. Because this thing went out to the public, and the public gave their view. And I believe the time the principal secretary was facing parliamentarians, he actually then has heard about what the public is saying about some sections of the bill. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, there is room that we can look at those that public has actually said is not correct. And so for me, I think that is the technical way of looking at it. Okay. A politician can say anything. Mm-hmm. I can say I pass it as it is because I am a politician. But I also want to say, we are not, like my colleague has said, we are not voting machines as members of Parliament. We are not. If you actually were very keen in listening to what Kenyans are saying, there is one member of Parliament who is very vocal in Azimio, and she's a member of Parliament in Nairobi, and she actually supported the bill, the housing levy, and everybody went berserk. Why are you supporting? And yet Azimio says you should not support. That basically tells you that there are many independent members in Parliament that speaks their mind, not the party lines. Personally, if you look at where I came from Azimio. But if I look at what this bill can be able to do to Kenyans, I say, as a person, as a member of Parliament, as an independent-minded person, that this bill is good. If there's any small thing that is not good, we can look at it, correct it, and be able to move this country. If I ask you, because the same questions will be, there is no time that Kenyans are going to be ready for transformation. Because every year we will talk about hardship from when we got independent. And the reason why we always say that at the time of independence, ourselves and a country like Singapore were on the same level, close to everything in terms of GDP, in terms of population, in terms of everything. But them, they took advantage of their situations and never actually had excuses in terms of what they needed to do. And they actually did it, and they moved. Now we are actually looking at them as a first world country. We are looking at ourselves as a third world. If we continue saying the situation is difficult, the situation is difficult, there's not the right time, there is never ever been a right time for anything.
But won't you be listening to what the people are telling you?
We are listening to what the people are telling us. But let me tell you this. And I think I will be a little bit, move out a little bit to look at the countries. If you look at, I'll give you 4 examples, where sometimes if you listen to the people, you might not be able to move. Let me give you an example of a minister who was called Michuki. There came a minister that was called Michuki that we'll still remember up to now. This person stood, and this time there was a lot of chaos in the matatu industry. And everybody had interest in matatu industry. And it was a big monster called the matatu industry, where we were packed into a single cab matatu, like a pack of cards, and we will travel. And he said, I'm going to bring the reforms. And the people, the people that say, let's listen to Wananchi, will say, no, you don't force people to change the way the matatus have been running. And he said, I am not going to listen to you. I want sanity in the matatu industry. People hated him for some time. But up to now, I think Michuki is in the records, having reformed the matatu industry. The same thing to the Mungiki thing, the same thing to the Nairobi River. This guy did not allow a lot, as long as he had the vision in terms of this is what needs to be done in this industry. He had the vision, he listened to the people, but he also gave direction. And that is the reason why we should have leadership. Just allow me to say this. At a point that we need development, sometimes listening to the people basically tells you that you'll always be there, because there are people that are rooted to think about the same rut, and so they will always be on the same rut. Year in, year out. We are not ready this time. We'll be ready next year. We will not be ready. There is no time that we should be ready as a country to walk out of debts. And the reason why you've actually seen our debt has been growing, trajectory, from 2 billion that Kibaki left. Now we are talking about 10 billion in 10 years. 10 trillion actually, from 2 trillion to 10 trillion. It basically means that our economy has been sustained by debts. And these debts are not free gifts. We are supposed to pay it. We need to reach a point where we say, let's stop. If we don't stop, we're going to auction this country. And this is the time we need to say, no, gentlemen, we have to stop getting into more debts. We have to finance our own budgets. And that is the reason why it is painful for us to say, let us go deep into our pockets to get ourselves out of these debts. If we continue babying ourselves and saying, oh, it's going to be good next year, it's going to be good, it will never be. Lee Kuan Yew something, the first president of Singapore, actually was nearly called a dictator. And people thought he was a bad man, but he had a vision. And the reason why Singapore moved from where they were to where they are now. Probably if he had a person like that, then at that point, that would have rallied this country together to think into hard questions like we are asking ourselves now, probably we will have moved as a country. But if we continue saying, oh, let's get loans so that people don't get hurt, at the end of it all, we will be hurt, whether we like it or not, now or in future.
Manje, what do you say to